My name is Cohen Michael Ben Levi of the Hebrew family of Guyana. The aim of these dissertations is to cause the true house of Israel, who have been without knowledge of themselves for countless generations, and who are now being awakened by the God of the universe, to better serve our Creator. It is our hope that by reacquainting this awakening black nation with their laws and former history, it will hasten our return to our true identity, thereby acknowledging our ancient ancestors. This in turn will allow us to know our Father's God and prepare us to stand together to meet the terrible day of the Creator that He is now readying for all mankind. May He cause all your minds and hearts to understand. Shalom Aleichem, Shabbat Shalom Leket. Do hope and pray that the Most High, the Holy One of Israel, is blessed each and every one of you, that you will even comfort those who are mourning the loss of a loved one. This week we heard about the late, great Hank Aaron and Sukal Smith, an NBA commentator. Just brings it close to home when we hear about these great people in our midst that have gone the way of all eternity. We ask the Most High to bless their families and comfort them, as well as those that are facing health challenges all around the world. And we are thankful for life on another Holy Shabbat day. I would like to continue, but before I do, I would like to say, you heard a beautiful song in Hebrew, and I'd like you to hear the words, because our program is about love and about brotherhood, certainly amongst our own people and amongst the human race. Just listen to Psalm 133.
Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. It is like the precious oil upon the head, coming down upon the beard, even Aaron's beard, that cometh down upon the collar of his garments, like the dew of Hermon, that cometh down upon the mountains of Zion. For there Jehovah commanded the blessing, even life forever.
Yes, just like most religions, our culture is a culture of love, and the laws and the commandments from the Creator teach us love, even though we as a people have not displayed this, nor has the human race. But this is the direction and the path of all humanity in the future. And our program is directed towards bringing that peace and that love on this earth, which is so needed. Today, we would like to continue in our program dealing with the topic, the Hebrew Israelite perspective on the epistles of Paul the Apostle. I'd like to continue where we left off and even apologize for the interruption and disruption of our program last week. Certainly was due to circumstances beyond our control. Once again, we are dealing with not a person or attacking an individual, Paul, or anyone else. Our teachings is to bring truth and also show the lies, the deception that is in the Bible. St. Paul the Apostle, he was a saint and made a saint after his death. St. Paul the Apostle, original name was Saul of Tarsus. He was born in 4 BCE, approximately. That's questionable by scholars. In Tarsus in Sicily, which is now in Turkey. He died about 62 or 64 AD. Within the first 100 years of the Gregorian calendar, in the year 62, he passed. The name Saul, Shaul or Sha'al in Hebrew, is the word for ask. He said his name is Saul, and we'll deal with that later. We know we had a king called Saul, and he was of the tribe of Benjamin. Strangely enough, Paul or Saul in the New Testament is also supposedly from the tribe of Benjamin, but we'll deal with that as we go along. One of the leaders of the first generation of Christians, often considered to be the most important person after JC in the history of Christianity. There's no person that's more important than Paul, because most of the New Testament is written in Paul's writings, his letters, and they call them epistles. And we're going to deal with the definition of epistles a little later, because we're trying to be thorough and getting understanding from this. This is not an attack on Christian figures, because our program is dealing with the Bible and trying to, again, set straight the facts, the truth that is in the Bible. And we have made it crystal clear that there's a conflict, contradiction between Old and New Testament. And this is what our program is bringing out, and our emphasis is on these points. Again, in his own day, although Paul was a major figure within a very small Christian community at that time in the movement, he was not as well known and accorded the respect like some of the other figures in the New Testament, Peter and James, the brother of JC. I always thought that strange. How could you be God and have a brother? You know, because he was born of Mary, and then Mary had other children. So what are they in terms of their titles and what have you? Just questions that comes to mind. And I'm sure many scholars have asked this question like I have. Again, when we think about these writings that I'm speaking on, these commentaries, I want you to know that these are commentaries that many Christian scholars have, and they've said that he's had enemies and detractors, and his contemporaries probably, as I said, did not respect him like they did some of the other apostles. Paul was compelled to struggle, and I heard he had a very hard life according to the history. And again, to establish his own worth and authority, he had to spend much of his life, unlike some of the other apostles. In his surviving letters, however, we have had the letters to tell us much about what took place, even subsequent influences on Christianity. And so these letters are helpful in understanding their history and what took place. Romans differs from all of the other letters of Paul in that it was written to a congregation over which Paul was not claimed and did not claim authority, because it's Rome. He stressed that he was merely going to Rome in transit because it was his principle not to evangelize where others had worked. So other apostles had gone to Rome, because remember, these epistles are to the Galatians, the Corinthians, to different people. So they're explaining why Rome, even though it was not under his authority and he did not proselytize there or go and teach there, that this is the reason he went. And as I said earlier, these are the words and commentaries of Christian scholars. They describe the life of Paul and their views on the letters of his epistles. Now, let's make this clear. Those letters are called books. They are not books. You can't have a book that's 1 page, 2 pages, or 3 pages, because some of these epistles are very short, whereas I mentioned last week, the why we start with Romans, because the epistles are in order of the size of the letter. And that's very important to understand. They're not in chronological order, but in order of the size of the letter, the length of his letters. Because Paul was going to a church he had not founded, his writings to the Roman Christians offered him an opportunity to present his theological views in a systematic way. In other words, you're going to see that there are different chapters that deal with different aspects of Paul's message and teachings. And so I want to make this point because it's very important. Paul reflected on how his special mission fitted into God's plans. That's little g gods, because my position and an Israelite position is that the gods that the Romans and the Greeks and Paul worship was not the God of Israel. And that's very important. So we know that anytime in the Old Testament when it's a God that's not a God, they use a little g. And so that's why I'm making so everyone knows. We're not talking about the creator of heaven and earth. We're talking about who Paul believes to be God. And you'll see that Jesus Christ for JC, as they say, is basically his teachings and what he's all about. To an Israelite, that's an abomination and blasphemous. To put someone equal to or above the Creator. You'll never see the Holy One of Israel and the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and no, because the Creator alone, exclusively, is given glory by every prophet and every servant that is knowledgeable of truth in the Old Testament. And we know that whenever he goes astray in changing gods, that prophet, or changing the law, the word of God, we are told, don't listen to them, don't even fear them. So the words of many of those in the New Testament, we reject them, discard them because they're against the Creator, anti-Most High, and anti-Torah. And that's what our whole position is on. Whenever they agree with Torah and the Most High, anyone, we are in agreement with you. Don't change the law. Don't change the God that made heaven and earth. And this is what the New Testament does. Here is what Paul says. Paul reflected on how his special mission fitted into God's plan for the salvation of mankind, of both Jews and Gentiles, a theme that reached its climax in chapters 9 and 11. Chapters 1 to 8 unfold with great specific teachings on how the coming of JC, the Messiah, has made it possible for the Gentiles to become heirs to God's promises, which is totally against Torah. Torah never says anything about that. That's just not in there. And again, he never made no promises to them, but we'll deal with how the Torah does speak about other nations in the created salvation. His argument is at first negative, stating that neither Gentile nor Jew could effect his own salvation. He then shows a new way in which eventually both can be delivered from the bondage of sin, being justified. That is to say, made right with God, not through the acceptance of the law, the Torah, but by faith in the crucified JC, the Lord, they told him. And when we say Lord, we mean the creator and maker of heaven and earth, the Lord of the universe. When Christians use Lord, they have a totally different statement. I'd like you to listen to Micah, the 4th chapter and the 5th verse, to show you Israelite position, even from days of old. This is our position. Now I have it read for you, and we do have it in the screen. It says,
Micah, chapter 4, verse 5. For all the peoples walk, each in the name of its God, but we will walk in the name of Yehovah, our God, forever and ever.
Yes, let all the peoples. We have no problem. If you see another God and you want to worship him, any nation, you have a right to do it. You didn't inherit the creator. You have a different culture. We're the light to the nation. We're trying to bring this truth to all mankind. But if you decide you want to continue to worship the sun, the moon, the stars, or anything in creation, including a man, you have a right to do so. And we're not in a problem with that. We have no problem. But our position is Israel, we will serve Yah, our creator, forever and ever. And that was said thousands of years. So my repeating it should be no problem to anyone. It's a clear understanding, and it should not make controversy. Let's listen to a little music before we go into some of our other points on the definitions. An Israelite perspective on the epistles of Paul, the apostle. And we got to define what an apostle is. And we're going to do that along with an epistle. Let's hear some good, open up your vision music. Open up your
to say, let Yah's people be. Israel were captive of an unrighteous man, and no Pharaoh would not hearken to the words of the Most High's plan.
Yes, we got to hearken to the Most High's plan. He has a special plan for us all, and we have to understand just what that plan is all about. It's about our salvation, the salvation of humanity. Toda Rabbah for your understanding of our message. Webster's New World Dictionary defines apostle as the following: any of the 12 disciples sent out by Christ to teach the gospel. Originally, Bartholomew, James, younger, son of Alphaeus, James the elder, and John, sons of Zebedee, Jude or Libasus or Thassaeus, Judas Iscariot, and Matthew, Shimon, called Peter, and Thomas. Paul, the apostle to the Gentiles, was not, listen to me, was not among the original 12. Judas was replaced by Matthias, and all of us know that Judas is the one who they say betrayed him, and like white supremacy would do, of course, they made him black. Just like the black cat, just like the black market, everything black at that time was considered evil, and that's deliberately why that was done. Be not mistaken. Again, a person sent out on a special mission or a preacher, the first Christian missionaries in any country or place was called an apostle. Any early Christian missionary or leader, an early advocate or leader of a new principle or movement, especially one aimed at reform. And listen to this one: any of the 12 administrative officials of the Mormon Church. That's in Utah. Interesting how that pops up, that the administrators call apostles in that church, but it's still a branch of Christianity. An epistle is a letter. I don't know why they didn't say the letters of Paul, because they got to make it look like a book to have it fit into the letters and writings of the Old Testament. But I want to read a letter to you one day and show you how letters should be written. Because I taught in school children how to write a letter. You know, you had to put a heading, the greeting, the signature, and all of that. And I don't see none of that in the letters of Paul. And it's just strange to me, this letter that is so long, it's almost like a book sometimes, like in terms of writing to a person. But again, it's in the New Testament, any of the letters written by an apostle. A selection from epistles are read as part of mass communion in various churches. Now, I want you to think about this. Nowhere have you heard anything thus far about Paul and the Israelites. This is all about Paul and the churches. That's why we're saying we're giving you our perspective. This message, as well as all the messages in the New Testament, are not for Israelites. They're for other people. If he wants to say he can't save us because we can't be saved by anyone but the Creator, and our salvation is in obedience to his righteous Torah. Conspiracy. We're telling you in our message, this is a conspiracy. And the New Testament is part of the conspiracy. Let's look at the definition. Conspiracy, a planning and acting together secretly, especially for the unlawful or harmful purpose, such as murder. They murdered our minds, made you go deaf and dumb and dead in the head. That's what we're saying. The plan or agreed on plot, just not the church, This is part of all the other societal airlines discrimination. When you make a phone call, you pay more to call to Africa than they pay to call to Europe. It's all part of the whole scheme. It's all part of this whole plan. When they're talking about making an equal playing field, they have to take the lies and confess. This is part of the conspiracy. That religion was used to enslave the minds of black people, and that's what we're showing and proving. A conspirator, a person who takes part in a conspiracy, they're all over the place. Policemen, doctors, lawyers, some of them are good people. Most High bless them. The evil ones, he's going to deal with them. And they fit what I'm speaking about. Not everyone. Millions of black people have been taught and convinced to believe in a lie. And this Paul letters help to get them in the conspiracy to get us to believe. You know, they always ask me the question, do you believe? You got to believe. No. Israelites, we don't believe. We know that the Most High is the maker of heaven and earth, and that there's no other God. And he don't have no son, no daughter, nobody that shares the power with him. We're just his people, called his son, as a metaphorical phrase to describe us as his chosen among the sons of men. But the Creator don't take a man's wife and make a baby. That's what we consider, again, just the Israelite perspective, it's an abomination, a blasphemous statement to make such a claim about the maker of heaven and earth. And this is what we all know. He's the Holy One of Israel. He would never think to do such a thing that he even told man not to do. Again, conspire to plan, especially in secret. See, this thing is secret. Even what I'm showing you in the New Testament, I'm just bringing out how they subtly tricked us. And there are many people that they're not teachers like I am. They're not scholars. They don't have decades. I have over 50 years of doing this research. They get young people, when they take somebody on the street who just found out they were Israelite last year, or speak to one of those celebrities who just found out yesterday, they can't do what I'm doing and what others who are scholars and have been this way for years and have studied and taught all around the world as I have. They don't call us. They know not who to call. And so this is part of the conspiracy to suppress the truth by not allowing the people who are qualified to speak on it. From an Israelite's perspective, the New Testament is foreign. I hope you heard me. It's a foreign influence. It has nothing to do with us. It's blasphemous, the Hebrew Israelites' Torah teachings. And that's why we're not against Paul. We're not against who you believe to be God, because that doesn't matter to us. Let the people serve whoever they want, our forefathers said. But as for us, we will serve Yahweh, our Creator. Their writings are in obscurity. What do you mean? They're dim. They're not clear. They're dark. You got to search to try to figure out what they're really saying. It's murky, like murky water. You pour some salt or something in it, and now it's not clear water. It's gloomy, not easily understood, that New Testament. And as we do it, you'll see it. I showed it in Revelation. I'm going to show it every time I open it up, because it's all over the place. Not easily perceived. Hidden, secrets, concealed, views. What does it do to the Old Testament? It makes it less intelligible. It's clear in the Old Testament when it says, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not. No, they changed up thou shalt not murder to thou shalt not kill. Now it's not clear because they didn't say murder in the law. It didn't say kill in the law, that is. It said murder. Lo tira sa'ak. Harag is the word for kill. When you know the Hebrew, you know that they mistranslated it. And we'll show you more of this as we go along. His testimony is obscure. Paul's testimony, obscure on the issues. And JC is an obscure person, because that's what obscure means. It can be obscure thing or person. And we're saying it's all obscure. It's not clear. It's dim. It's dark. It's gloomy. And it's even worse than that. It's evil, deliberately done. That's the key to the whole thing of all that I'm saying. This is not no accident. This is our enemy's plan to keep us enslaved in our minds and serving them with our labor as we've done for over 400 years. Before another song, I just want to give you an example of what I'm about to do in this teaching today. And that is, I'm going to show you in this example, the first of two examples. In Romans, the 11th chapter, verse 1 and 2 will be read to you, and possibly maybe a couple of other verses in Romans 11. And I'm going to show that in one place, Paul says he's an Israelite. In another place, Paul says he's the seed of Abraham of the tribe of Benjamin, which is impossible. And in another place, he's going to say, Paul, I am a Jew. Now, let me make this clear. You cannot be a Jew unless you are Yehudi, because Yehuda, which I'm going to have read for you now, the book of Ezra, or Esther, that is, the 2nd chapter and the 5th verse, so you can see no place in the entire Old Testament will you find the word Jew in Hebrew. It always will read Yehudi, and Yehudi means of Judah or Yehuda. The trick is that they make you think that the tribe of Yehuda, which is one of the 12 tribes, Levi, Shimon, and then of course you have Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and then Judah or Yehuda. The Jews tried to get slick, and the translators, and they translated the word Yehuda to Jew because they had to do it. It's all part of the secret trick. They didn't expect one of us to know Hebrew back then. They never saw the end of the matter that we would awaken, because the Creator said they forgot the end of the matter, that we weren't going into slavery forever. One day we would wake up. Let's look at Ezra and see the point that I'm making before we go into these other points in Romans 11. Let's put up on our screen again, Esther, I'm sorry about Ezra, Esther 2, verse 5.
Esther, chapter 2, verse 5. Now there was a Jew in Susa the citadel, whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, son of Shimei, son of Kish, a Benjamite.
Okay, a Benjamite. Now, that's giving you the definition. A Benjamite, now let's look in Hebrew. That's the false translation of Jew. Now let's read it in Hebrew and see what it says in the original language. They changed it.
Verse 5. Ish Yehudi haya beshushan habira, ushmo Mardakai, ben Yair, ben Shim'i, ben Quish Ish, Yemini.
Now, again, leave it on the board, please. Ish Yehudi, that's the word Yehuda, not Jew. A man of Yehuda or Judah, haya beshushan habira. In other words, he was, again, in that place called Shushan, which is the capital of Babylon. Ushmo Mordecai, he was a man named Mordecai. Ben Yair, Ben Shim'i, Ben Ish, Ben Quish, Ish, Yemini. Yemini is the word for Benjamin. Ben Yamin, meaning son of my right hand, because Yamin is right. And that's what Yaakov, Jacob said. He will not be called son of my sorrow, but son of my right hand. Now, we'll go into Romans 11, 1 and 2, and see how Paul is confused about even who he is. So if Paul don't even know whether he's an Israelite or Jew, how can I believe anything out of his mouth? And I'm going to show you even the things out of his mouth are not true according to Torah. It says,
Romans chapter 11, verse 1. I say then, hath God cast away his people? God forbid. For I also am an Israelite, of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. Verse 2. God hath not cast away his people which he foreknew. Wot ye not what the scripture saith of Elias? How he maketh intercession to God against Israel, saying, Acts 21, verse 39. But Paul said, I am a man, which am a Jew of Tarsus, a city in Cilicia, a citizen of no mean city, and I beseech thee, suffer me to speak unto the people. Romans chapter 11, verse 1.
And we can stop right there. What's our point? How can he say in one breath he's a Jew, and then it's recorded, I'm an Israelite? It's impossible to be an Israelite and be Jewish. That's a converted person to a religion. Where we're talking a biological gene, seed, bloodline. That's not what Paul is. He's not of the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And you have to know that. Then who's lying? They said two different things. Then how could you be an Israelite and a Jew? And that's impossible. That's just one case of showing you. And look at what he says in another verse, Galatians, maybe, perhaps. You can see that. We'll take Revelations 2, 8 and 9.
Revelations chapter 2, verse 8. And unto the angel of the church in Smyrna write, These things saith the first and the last, which was dead and is alive.
Hold on right there.
Verse
You know
9.
something's wrong with that if you're an Israelite. The Creator is from everlasting to everlasting. He never died, so this can't be Yah. The only one that could be is JC, because he died, but he's not God, and he has nothing to do. That complete thought is alien, foreign. It's even weird for an Israelite to consider something like that because it goes against Torah. It says further.
Verse 9. And I know thy works, and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich, and I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan.
Paul said he was a Jew. Are you of the synagogue of Satan? Then if you're not, that's what I mean by your statements of gloomy and dim. They're not clear, they're murky. Because the Torah in the Old Testament, the Holy Scriptures, never speaks like that. The Creator speaks in the absolute. There is no ambiguity in the statements of the Holy One of Israel. He is not the author of confusion. We've made that point. Let's take our next point. Let's read Galatians, and then we'll go to our next point.
Galatians chapter 2, verse 15. We who are Jews by nature and not sinners of the Gentiles.
We, who is he talking to? All the other Jews that existed at that time. This history in the New Testament was not Israelites in the New Testament. It's European Jews that were there at that time. And so Paul was one of them. Probably, maybe not, because once you make a false statement, I don't know what to believe. Now let's look at the second point. First, let's go and read Genesis 17, 1 to 14 to learn about this important subject, circumcision. Then we are going to have read for us Romans 2, 25 to 29. And if our brothers have it already in English, we'll let the screen read it for you so that you can see it. It says in Genesis 17:1, please understand what it's saying about circumcision so you'll know how it was changed when we go to the New Testament. It's
Genesis chapter 17, verse 1. When Abram was 99 years old, Jehovah appeared to Abram and said to him, I am God Almighty. Walk before me and be blameless. Verse 2. That I may make my covenant between me and you, and may multiply you greatly. Verse 3. Then Abram fell on his face, and God said to him, verse 4, Behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall be the father of a multitude of nations. Verse 5. No longer shall your name be called Abram, but your name shall be Avraham, for I have made you the father of a multitude of nations. Verse 6. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and will make you into nations, and kings shall come from you. Verse 7. And I will establish my covenant between me and you, and your offspring after you throughout their generations for everlasting covenant, to be God to you and to your offspring after you. Verse 8. And I will give to you and to your offspring after you the land of your sojournings, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. Verse 9. And God said to Abraham, As for you, you shall keep my covenant, you and your offspring after you throughout their generations. Verse 10. This is my covenant, which you shall keep between me and you and your offspring after you. Every male among you shall be circumcised. Verse 11. You shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskins, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and you. Verse 12. He who is 8 days old among you shall be circumcised, every male throughout your generations, whether born in your house or bought with your money from any foreigner who is not of your offspring. Verse 13. Both he who is born in your house and he who is bought with your money shall surely be circumcised. So shall my covenant be in your flesh, an everlasting covenant. Verse 14. Any uncircumcised male who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant.
That's the covenant. The key, we're going to hold on there. Listen to what the salient points was. It was a covenant between Abraham and his seed, his offspring. They were to be circumcised in the flesh of their foreskin, and that they were going to have a covenant by circumcision as a sign of this relationship between the Most High and the nations of Israel. And let's understand, the father of a multitude, the nation of Israel, the nation of the Israelites, the nation of the Edomites, all of these, Isaac's son, Jacob and Esau, the sons of Torah, all of them, Abraham's seed. Many nations among the Arabs are of Abraham's seed or Abraham's seed. They call him Ibrahim, and they know what I'm saying is true. That's why Muslims claim in Islam to be from the same man. Now, let's see how Christianity spends it in their own way.
For circumcision verily profiteth, if thou keep the law. But if thou be a breaker of the law, thy circumcision is made uncircumcision.
No, you cannot be uncircumcised once you are circumcised. You can't put the skin back again. And you have to understand this, even if it were metaphorically. If a person breaks the law, they get punished by the law. It doesn't mean they're out of the covenant because you, let's say, committed adultery. Now you've got to cut off your circumcision or put it back. It's just stupid. It's unclear. It's dim. It's murky. Look how that clear reading was just in the Old Testament. Look how you continue to read and you'll see what I'm talking about. This is not clear reading or writing. Therefore, in verse 26.
Therefore, if the uncircumcision keep the righteousness of the law, shall not his uncircumcision be counted for circumcision? Verse
Now,
27.
you know that don't make sense. Let me try to make sense out of what you're trying to say. If you're a circumcised person and you're going to be a law breaker, there's no profit, he's saying, in breaking the law. That would be true. But the circumcision has nothing to do with it because that's just the covenant and a sign of the covenant between the Creator and his people, and it doesn't apply to anyone else. I told you, the Israelites, the Edomites, the sons of Torah, the sons of Jacob called Israel, but it don't apply to Gentiles. They're not of Abraham's seed. It's confusion. Read on, please.
And shall not uncircumcision, which is by nature, if it fulfill the law, judge thee, who by the letter in circumcision does transgress the law? Verse 28.
This is confusing. Jew don't have nothing to do with the circumcision. It has to do with Israel. And let me tell you something. I read a lot of books. And in a lot of books, unless you have discernment, you won't know when they're tricking you and using Jew and substitute for Israel, just like they're doing in this New Testament. It's all over the historian books. You got to know how to pick that lie out, or else you won't know what period of time is Israel or Jew. And that's what I'm showing you. You got to have scholarship to do what I'm doing here. Don't you?
For he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision, which is outward in the flesh.
And I would agree if you say an Israelite is not an Israelite just because you put on culture. It's deeper than that. It's spiritual. It has to do with the holiness of the individual setting himself aside for the Holy One of Israel, the maker of heaven and earth. And that's not their understanding. They got another spin on the truth.
Verse 29, but he is a Jew, which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, and not in the letter, whose praise is not of men, but of God.
First of all, we don't have no letter in terms, you mean the letter of the law? I agree, we don't go just by words. It's an applied righteousness that Israelites live by. I just showed you an example of what I'm about to show you in Romans, the first chapter. But let's listen to some music before we break down Romans 1:1 thoroughly. The first chapter dealing with is the letter to the Romans. Let's listen to some holy music, music that glorifies the maker of heaven and earth, the Holy Spirit, great King of this universe, unto whom all glory and honor is due. Praise Yah. Praise Yah. This is about love, not about hate. It's about truth, not about falsehood. It's about humility, and our program is not about arrogancy. It's trying to bring together humanity. How many copies of Torah existed at the time? Did Paul have a copy? Because a lot of his incorrect statements were based on Genesis. Did he have a copy? The copies were rare. In 62 AD, there was not even a book printed, because it wasn't until 1440 that the first Bible came off the Gutenberg press. Paul didn't have one. How did he get a copy? A lot of things others would not question, but scholars know how to ask the right questions, and scholars and historians have to question to find out whether or not the history is valid, biased, motivated by some biased position. And that's what we're showing you. It is the New Testament. Paul's letters are flooded over, inundated with falsehoods and references and quotations from the Old Testament. I think if you took every quote out of the New Testament, you have a book the size of a letter or a comic book. You don't know how many precepts have come out of Jeremiah, Daniel, Isaiah, Genesis, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, over and over and over. They just keep taking one and putting it in there. That's not a writing, that's plagiarism. That's what I keep telling you. The book has been put together cleverly by someone trying to deceive people. And the Christians who were Romans, people of Italy, and around the European world has nothing to do with Israelites. Why do you have us coming out of slavery off the plantation, sending in these missionaries with these shirts and ties on and a hat and a Bible in their hand and giving us their New Testament version as part of the plan of freedom? Because they have statements in there, it's for a slave mind. Love your master. When he beats you, take the meat and suffer the way the Savior suffered. Creator says an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. You hit me, I hit you back. Everybody knows that's the fair way. You don't want to hit anybody. But what will happen if you keep turning your cheeks? You won't have a face. Not in the neighborhood that I came from. So I'm telling you, even on the earth today, when they shot those 2 planes and flew them into the World Trade Building, I didn't have to hear that Christian nation say, somebody died for their sins. He loves you. We forgive you. The next day, the then President Bush was getting ready to bomb them off the face of the earth. Even people he didn't even know who did it. Somebody had to pay. That's their mentality. Why do we have all these wars if there's all this love that's supposed to be coming out of, most of the world is Christian and it's their world and they have all the wars. This thing is not being practiced the way it's being spoken of. This Christian love. And when it comes to holiness, I'm telling you, you have a totally different definition than the one that we learned in the Holy Scriptures. And that's why we want you to know we cannot agree with those things that we hear. We're going to hear another piece of music, and then we're going to go into Romans, the first chapter and the first verse, and break that down for us. It says, in this beautiful song that we have. If you're not ready, I'll go on and just start Romans, but we have a song for you. We want you to meditate on this music. Think about what you've heard. Go and follow up the precepts.
Confused for so long, I've been taken from my home, shipped across the seas, I've been whipped and enslaved, worked and unpaid, I've been lost for so long, searching far and wide, and I'm trying to find my name. Tell it to me who stole my name. Tell it to me who's behind this game. Who stole my land? Tell it to me who's behind this plan. Who stole my name? Tell it to me who's behind this game. masters in disguise. They stole away my name. Yes, their preachers play this game. They gave to me their JC and forcefully enslaved me. They made me serve this man, and this was all their plan. Tell it to me who.
Yes, they put their spin on circumcision and everything else. Because we want you to know that when the scriptures speak about circumcise your heart, he's really saying remove, metaphorically, like the skin is removed, remove unrighteousness from your mind, from your spirit. And so don't let people fool you and make you think that the literal application of circumcision can become some spiritual circumcision. That's Christianity's spin on our law. It's foreign. It's nowhere in the scriptures that you should substitute circumcision and not regard it because it's part of the covenant. It says that you are the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Covenant is an agreement between the Creator and his people Israel to keep the law, the Torah, and he would be our help, our power. Even in the New Testament, I'm going to show you that Paul knows that when they say God, they mean power. And that's why I want you to know that sometimes we'll use the word power because we're talking about the most powerful being in the universe. It's not a man. It's the maker of man, the creator of heaven and earth. Pharaoh Sanders, when I was a teenager, I'd go to the village and listen to him play his saxophone. And that time he had put out a beautiful song. Many of you my age would know it. The Creator has a master plan. There are people that know what I'm saying. I've heard people say, I've heard Oprah Winfrey use the word creator. I wonder if she knows that I'm saying the same thing. There's a maker of heaven and earth. He's not a man. He's the spirit. It's the breath that's in your nostrils. He gave you that breath of life. That's his spirit. And when he takes that breath, from dust thou art, and unto dust thou shalt return. So understand, it's not mine. It's what's in your Bible. And I'm trying to get everyone on the planet to know the truth that's in the Bible and not man's spin on the truth in the Bible, which is worldwide Christianity. It's the book dealing with the Bible that has spread further that lie than any other religion on earth. That's why Paul, like myself, Jeremiah told us to do the same. And I'm hoping that my brothers and sisters out there will understand that when Yah said, I will send for fishermen and hunters, and they will go and fish them and hunt them, that's all Paul was doing. He was hunting Christians. And the only reason he got a chance to do it because we did not go and hunt them and tell them the truth with the light of Yah. Now is the time that Yah has chosen. Let's go to Romans 1:1 and see what our first precept said. We're going to go through the entire chapter for this program. It says,
Romans chapter 1, verse 1. Paul, a servant of JC, called to be an apostle, separated unto the gospel of God. Verse 2. Which he had promised afore by his prophets in the Holy Scriptures.
That's a lie. He never promised nobody nothing about no gospels and never said that an apostle would be coming and separated unto the gospel. In fact, in the book of Isaiah, the 40th chapter, is where the first words in Hebrew, and they took that Hebrew word, bibasir, which means, again, the new message. Read Isaiah 49, that verse.
Isaiah chapter 40, verse 9. Go on up to a high mountain, O Zion, herald of good news. Lift up your
Good
voice.
news. That good news was to Israel. They made the gospel the good news in the New Testament. They took everything out of our home. That's what I'm showing you. The idea of the good news was what he said right here. Herald of good news to who? To Zion, to the people of Israel in Jerusalem. He goes on to say, lift up your voice.
O Jerusalem, herald of good news, lift it up, fear not. Say to the cities of Judah, behold your God.
Your God is the maker of heaven and earth, the creator. They tricked you and they made the the good news, the gospel, and changed it up to you know who. How you think I make this stuff up? It's through research. I found it. And I'm just revealing it to you. I had to dig deep to get this information because that's what scholarship is. It's not rhetoric. It's facts. I'm showing you facts. It says.
Verse 3. Concerning his son JC their Lord, which was made of the seed of David according to the flesh.
Oh, this is the biggest lie they ever told. Now listen to this one. Concerning his son, that's not his son, which son of Jesus Christ, and he's your Lord. The Creator is the only Lord of the universe. Called Adonai. They tricked you there. Which was made of the seed of David. That's a lie, according to the flesh. David never had no son called JC, according to the flesh. Let's go to where they got this one from. Matthew 1:1-6.
Matthew chapter 1, verse 1. The book of the generations of JC, the son of David, the son of Abraham.
Hold on right there. This is not, first of all, the book in the Torah don't start with the generation of JC. If it's going to deal with the generations of David, that's in Chronicles in one chapter. The sons of Abraham in another chapter. Abraham's son Isaac is a genealogy in another. They're all separated. You can search Chronicles over and over. You will never find JC in one chapter in anybody's genealogy. Go on and read.
Abraham begot Isaac, and Isaac begot Jacob, and Jacob begot Judas and his brethren.
Judas? No, Yehuda. Judas is the one who killed. That's another misspelling. That is, even when they had in the other portion, Elias, they meant Elijah. How did you get Elias for Elijah? How do you get Judas? You got Jacob right, Abraham right, David right. We never had nobody called Judas. That's going to confuse people. It's murky, it's dim. It's another one of those places where it's obscure, shrouded in, or hidden in darkness. Trickery's in that state. If you don't know what I know, you won't see that. Read on.
Verse 3. And Judas begat Phares, and Zara, and Thamar. And Phares begat Esrom, and
You will
Esrom
never find
begat
those names. All them names are misspelled. Go ahead.
Aram. Verse 4. And Aram begot Aminadab, and Aminadab begot Naason.
It should be
And
not shown, not so. They playing games with your mind.
Naason begot Salmon.
Go check the genealogy of Genesis. You see that his name is Nachshon, of the tribe of Yehuda. He was a Judite also.
Salmon begot Booz of Rahab.
It's Boaz, Booz, booze, like he's a drink or something like that. You playing games with people's mind. Them Christians know they're wrong, and they know how to spell. You spelled all the other ones right. They misspell the ones that they want to misspell. See, this is what I mean. They're being ambiguous, indistinct, vague, and more than anything else, they're being confusing in the teachings and in the writing and the spelling. You can't cross-reference if you got the wrong spelling. It says in verse 5.
Booz begot Obed of Ruth, and Obed begot Jesse.
And Jesse is not Jesus. They're trying to use Jesse to be Jesus here, to say that this is Jesus is the son of David. His father was Jesse who begot David. David didn't beget Jesse. That's the trick they're using on you in Matthew. And that's why I had to go and take you over to this, because Romans is lying, and then they lie in Matthew, and then they lie until I take you to the truth. And then you see how they changed the lie. This is revealing the lie. I'm not teaching Christianity. I'm revealing their tricks and lies.
And Jesse begat David the king, and David the king begot Solomon of her that had been the wife of Urias.
And Uriah, you know what's going on. They're playing these games with your mind. And I know Israelites out there who are knowledgeable, and there are many of them. Let me let the audience know. They're probably laughing right now out loud because they know this is something that you cannot get around. Paul messing up on circumcision. He's saying he's a Jew and he's an Israelite, which you can't be. It's impossible. What else are they lying about? Here's Samuel giving you more evidence on this point.
Samuel. 1 Samuel, chapter 16, verse 1. Yahweh said to Samuel, "How long will you grieve over Saul, since I have rejected him from being king over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and go. I will send you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided for myself a king among his sons."
His son, that's how David was his son, and David was the one who, as you see now, David was the son. He's the one who's going to be anointed. It's not the other way around. Jesus don't have nothing to do with Jesse, and they tried to trick you and stick him in there in David's genealogy. So again,
Samuel,
and we don't have to go. We're going on to Romans 1:4 because we're not going to belabor our point. We're going to make sure the time gets to cover all of Romans. Let's go to the 4th verse, which is an abomination and a blasphemous statement to Israel.
Verse 4. And declared to be the Son of God with power, according to the Spirit of holiness, by the resurrection from the dead.
That's a lie, and it's a blasphemous lie.
Verse 5. By whom we have received grace and apostleship for obedience to the faith among all nations for his name. Verse 6. Among whom are ye also the called of JC?
Nobody's been called to him. They're teaching that. They're putting that on you. He never called nobody. And if he was alive, he'll tell you that he never did. Yeah, everything they're saying, he's dead. He can't speak for himself. Even that's if he ever existed. Because they're shrouded, confusion all around his birth and everything with the whole story of the so-called gospel in the New Testament.
All that be in Rome, beloved of God, called to be saints, grace to you and peace from God our Father.
See, an Israelite, if you call to be a saint, you have to die. We don't want no part of that. That's why, again, we have that position that said, my teacher used to say it all the time, Cohane, Levi, my mentor. He would say, they want all the gold in the earth, but they want you to have your pie in the sky. You got to die in order for you to get the blessings that they're getting in the earth. And he was right. And that's the same thing I'm saying here. Don't be fooled. We don't want our blessing up in heaven. We want it right here. And we don't want to die to be no saint, because a saint in Israel is called a Kasidah. It means the kind ones, his kind ones. And so if you're a loving, kind person and you're an Israelite, you might qualify to be in that remnant. If you're not, I hope you'll be a kinder, more tender person, more loving individual, and do the right thing by everyone, not only your own, everybody, because there's no sometime righteousness. It's all seasons, steadfast righteousness, and love for your brothers. You don't hate white people because they're white, and you don't like black people because they're black, because intelligence tells us that the color of your skin does not determine your character. Martin Luther King said, on that we agree. Let's go on with our next person.
Verse 8. First, and thank my God through JC. For
Stop right there. That's wrong. That's wrong right there. We can't do that. That's an abomination. Thou shalt have no other gods and beside me. You can't add nobody to him. And faith to us means trust in the Creator, not a religion. When they say faith, their words, they define them by their power. We have our own power to define. You can't define terms for us. We, Israelites, Hebrews, We define them in Ivrit, and we don't allow you and other people, no religion, to define our understanding, the words which we use for our understanding. Faith in Paul's statements are not acceptable by us. Remember, this is an Hebrew Israelite perspective on the Epistles of Paul. We're not condemning him. For Christians. You can believe everything he said, do it. For us, Yah said do something different, and to go against the Creator would be a sin and our death. That's why we're in captivity now, because we broke the laws of the Most High. We turned to other gods, and he even told us, when you go into captivity, you're going to serve gods of wood and stone as a punishment for not serving me. Because you forsook the fountain of living waters, you forsook the living eternal Creator for use, for systems of gods that don't have nothing, they can do nothing. And that's what he taught us. And so now we understand, after having been punished all over the world, I am a brother, an Israelite, born in Harlem. How do I speak Hebrew? How could I possibly know what I know? Who would have believed my report, or our report, that a person like me and so many other Israelites saying this and have said it before me, that we are the people of the Creator, the Torah is the path that we walk in, and the Most High, the maker of heaven and earth, is whom we serve. And this goes back to my first teacher, indirectly, Rabbi Matthews, who taught my teaching others in a line of teaching. And now this preacher that teaches that are going to be teaching us like I am, and I was right there. Some of them you hear them singing. I'm telling you, this preacher is well and alive and all around the world and growing, because Levi, like all Israel, the house of Levi is coming together. Tell you this too. Very shortly, I'll be telling you about the LCC, the Levitical Calendar Committee. We have the Priesthood Calendar Committee that will be sharing our information on all the holy days and all of the understanding concerning the way of life coming from the Cohane, the way it should be. The priesthood telling the nation the time of the appointed season. You'll be hearing about this very, very soon as we approach the holy season. Come soon.
For you all, that your faith is spoken of throughout the whole world.
Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 11. For this commandment that I command you today is not too hard for you, neither is it far off. Verse 12. It is not in heaven that you should say, who will ascend to heaven for us and bring it to us, that we may hear it and do it? Verse 13.
From heaven, the Creator telling you that we can cut it there. That's our main point. Nobody has to go over the sea to Mecca. Nobody has to go up to heaven to bring it down for us. He lets you know it's in your mouth, it's in your heart that you do the Lord. Nobody ever was expected to come. Nobody came. Nobody will come. Moses gave you the Torah, and the Creator is nigh through your prayer. It goes on to say.
Verse 9. For God is my witness, whom I serve with my spirit in the gospel of his Son, that without ceasing I make mention of you always in my prayers. Verse 10. Making request, if by any means now at length I might have a prosperous journey by the will of God to come unto you. Verse 11. For I long to see you, that I may impart unto you some spiritual gift, to the end ye may be established.
What can a man, spiritual gifts, I
Verse
don't know what he's talking about. Is it talking in tongues? That's not a spiritual gift. What is he talking about? It's confusing. And to Israelites, we don't even have to pay attention, because we know this is not the language, the spirit of the Holy One of Israel. Paul speaks in a way that is deceiving or evading moral precepts in the Torah by having what? Phrases that have many different interpretations. That's how the New Testament, I told you, the Creator don't have it like that. Just remember those other readings that you heard. He speaks always in the absolute. Look at all these words that make you confused. You can't even make your request. If by any means now at length I might have a prosperous journey by, I can't see the rest of it, way of God to come unto you, for I long to see that I may impart unto you some spiritual gift, to the end ye may be established. That is, that I may be comforted together with you by the mutual faith, both of you and of me. Israelites want to know what mutual faith. That ain't how you get it in Israelite understanding. It's no mutual faith. It's just the law we're going to say. By all of us applying the law, I love you as I love myself, and you love me as you love yourself. That's clear. No confusion. This is a lot of talk that takes you nowhere but to some gloomy, misunderstood. It's not easily understood. It's not clearly expressed. It's even cryptic. What do you mean? Purposely concealing the meaning. Cryptic. That's what that means. This is being done to secretly hide the truth that I'm bringing out to you. That truth, you got to go back to the Old Testament. They're not going to go there. It takes this type of scholarship to show you what they did. It goes on to say,
It is that I may be comforted together with you by the mutual faith, both of you and me. Verse 13. Now I would not have you ignorant, brethren, that oftentimes I purposed to come unto you, but was let hitherto, that I might have some fruit among you also, even as among other Gentiles.
Gentiles, we can't mix with them. We can't have seed of them. That's not what the Lord tells you. And Paul is saying to Benjamin, no, you can do that as a Jew. You can marry anyone you want. But the seed of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob has instructions about, again, not to mix their seed in such a manner. And you know, how would you, then you really will need an answer. That's why we had forced mixing, mulatto, where they raped our own women and had children by even Thomas Jefferson. Imagine that. One of the presidents of the United States, even it's in their history books that he had children from the slaves. I'm not trying to be slanderous. This is truth that we're dealing with. They have to deal with the truth. Those who are listening, who are the perpetrators of this lie. It goes on to say,
Verse 14. I am debtor both to the Greeks and to the barbarians, both to the wise and to the unwise.
that ain't got nothing to do with Israelites. The barbarians, who are we indebted? We're indebted to you. You're the ones who put us under this terrible enslavement. You were barbarian then. Now you're civilized. The Greeks, the Romans, they know what they did to us. And now he's saying they're going to be nice to the Gentiles. They didn't do that to us. So it says in verse 115.
So, as much as in me is, I am ready to preach the gospel to you that are at Rome also. Verse 16. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek.
These precepts conflict with Israelite teaching and Hebraic thought. There is no connection anywhere in the Old Testament with these particular ideas, teachings, or thoughts. Go on and read. None.
But therein is the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith.
Oh, that is not how it applies in the writings of the Most High. That is in the Torah, in our Hebraic Holy Scripture, but it's not in context the way they did. Notice they didn't quote as it is written. Where? They don't want to tell you where. I can tell you where, but it's not necessary. Live by faith, not the faith he's talking about. It says,
for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who hold the truth in unrighteousness.
Yes, I tell you something. His wrath is not being removed in heaven. You can see it all over this earth today. The Most High has his wrath on the people and on the nation. Explain, and I want to explain verse 117. Let's go back to 117. It says a very important precept. Romans 1, verse 17. Let's take it from there. Because we want to explain and make it clear that our message is all about the Creator, no creature. Paul and the entire New Testament have creatures that are part of this glory of God. In verse 117, for therein is the righteousness of God revealed through faith, to faith as is written, not faith to faith, not from one religion to another. Nothing has been revealed. This is what's revealed. Only worship the Creator and not any creature or any of the creation. That's what the message of Yah is. That's the faith and the loyalty that we in the covenant have to give to the Creator. We will worship and have no other God beside him. Now we can go. Yes, obedience. Once we waxed fat and we kicked. We got so much prosperity and good that we started turning to other gods and we would not obey his law. Our closing precepts are these that are on the screen.
17. Because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has shewed it unto them. Verse 20. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen.
Now, Paul is saying every invisible thing of the Creator that is made in creation, which is the world, are clearly seen, being understood
by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead.
Now that's see that word Godhead? You'll never see that in Hebrew. There's no way it could even be said in Hebrew. That is a European Christian statement and terminology which is not in our Hebraic vocabulary. That's a religious statement, has nothing to do with Israelites. That's why, from an Israelite perspective, we reject these teachings.
Without excuse. Verse 21. Because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God.
Yes, we are guilty of that, and so is all mankind. When we knew the truth, we did not glorify the Creator. We turned on him. We made images. We started worshiping the Baalim. And here's what he said. Neither,
but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened.
In other words, we and all the earth, not only Israelites, we, the whole earth, is under spiritual darkness now. I'm showing you the true light.
Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools.
I was a fool, my ancestors, because we thought we was wiser than the Most High, started making our own gods, coming up with our own teachings, and we became fools. Because you look at the Negro today, and you know he's the fool of everybody's butt, of everyone's joke on the planet. Why? Because we don't have this truth about ourselves and the truth about the true and the living God. We are confused through their religious teaching. It's everywhere.
Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 4. They decorate it with silver and gold. They fasten it with hammer and nails so that it cannot move.
Just imagine that. We get Christmas trees every year and they cost so much money, the price is rising every year. And just with this, we mess up our children's minds with these lies. How many of the children out there believe in Santa Claus? And you know, some of our children, they believe in Spider-Man, Superman, but they don't believe in the true and living God. That people have got our people so confused that we believe in characters that are myths and don't even exist. And the true and living God that controls our destiny in life, we don't even have the knowledge of him. We got rich, did well as a nation. The so-called black man in Africa, King David, Solomon, filthy rich. We lost it all because we turned our backs on the maker of heaven and earth. And until you understand this, you can play games all you want, my brothers and sisters. You will be destroyed for the lack of this particular knowledge. And until you get it, you will never change your condition because it's bound in heaven with the maker of heaven and earth, whereas forever to wait on us. He said, return unto me, says Yah, and I will return unto you. Don't forget it. Go read Hosea. You see it in the 14th chapter. It says,
Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 16. Beware lest you act corruptly by making a carved image for yourselves in the form of any figure, the likeness of male or female. Psalm 106, verse 20. They exchanged the glory of God for the image of an ox that eats grass.
That's right. We made that
Isaiah chapter
golden sheep. You remember? So he's telling you. Same thing for us, Paul is saying. Change the image of the true God into the image like unto the image of man and beasts and creeping things.
The 40, verse 18. To whom then will you liken God? Or what likeness compare with him?
That's
Verse
right. Come see.
26. Lift up your eyes on high and see. Who created these? He who brings out their hosts by number, calling them all by name, by the greatness of his might, and because he is strong in power, not one is missing.
Look up in heaven tonight, see them stars, and ask yourself, did a man come up there?
Ezekiel
Truth precept. Look how clear it reads. So I went in and saw.
chapter 8, verse 10. So I went in and saw, and there engraved on the wall all around was every form of creeping things and loathsome beasts, and all the idols of the house of Israel.
In other words, look at that. Clear statement. Idols was everywhere. The prophet saw it, and he knew and understood. We had sinned and that we were secretly praising other gods, even though publicly we were saying something different. That's why we were enslaved, black man. This is your reason. You want to know why it happened? You know what happened. Why it happened is just as important. We forsook the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, our God, the maker of heaven and earth, and we turned to other gods, and we lived contrary to the righteous Torah, wronging one another, not loving one another, not being fair and just with one another, and we're still doing it today. I am sick of hearing us cry about other people hurting us when every time I look on the news, another black man is killing another black man, woman, or child. This week, a 6-year-old baby shot innocently. Her life is taken away for somebody that probably go to church on Sunday and don't have no understanding on Monday about God. I'm telling you, we are sad, sad people only because we don't know the true and living God. And I'm telling you, he's the maker of heaven and earth. Turn from every other God. Go back to the Most High. Our final precept are these words to be read by our reader, Yereka Yahu. And they're in the book of Isaiah, the 26th chapter. And he's beginning at verse 11 through 15. Listen closely to this final precept before our closing benediction and words.
Jehovah, thy hand was lifted up, yet they see not. They shall see with shame thy zeal for the people. Yea, fire shall devour thy adversaries. Jehovah, thou wilt establish peace for us, for thou hast indeed wrought all our works for us. O Jehovah, our God, other lords besides thee have dominion over us, but by thee only do we make mention of thy name.
They have had dominion over us, but by thy name only do we make mention of thy name.
The dead live not, the shades rise not. To that end hast thou punished and destroyed them, and made all their memory to perish.
Did you see what it said? The dead live not? Nobody dies and gets raised up 3 days or even 3 years or 3,000 years later. You've been duped.
Thou hast gotten the honor with the nations, O Yahweh.
The Babylonians, the Greeks, all the historians, Syrians, the Egyptians, he delivered out of their hands. He's going to deliver us today.
Yea, exceeding great honor with the nations. Thou art honored unto the farthest ends.
Everybody knows about what he did to Egypt, Babylon, Rome, and Greece. It's all through the history. He's telling us these words. And that is our thought for today. I would like to ask the Holy One of Israel to bless your minds, your hearts to understand. May he bless you and your families as our closing thoughts for you on this holy Shabbat day. Yivareka Yehovah Yishmareka. Ya'ir Yehovah Panayo Aleka Wikumeka. Yisa Yehovah Panayo Aleka. Wayasim Akam. Shalom. Hallelujah.
And they should put my name upon the children of Israel, and I bless them. Sing Hallelujah.